Very clear. What's the retention level in the business generally, you think?
Over the years, we were probably 95 to 98. Then that would drop every now and then to about 90. On a bad year, they'd be in the 80s somewhere. But when you have 5,000 contracts and you're at 95, you're losing a lot of contracts. So that's the thing is there's a big hit there if you're losing that many contracts.
From everything the customers and the industry environment, would you expect the retention rate to stay roughly the same, go up or down over the next 2 years?
My expectation is there'll be over the next couple of years that it's going to go down. I mean, there's going to be a higher level of lost business. So they're going to, they'll probably stay in the 90s again. They have a lot of contracts and they're adding. I don't even know what they're adding these days, but if they pop 100 buildings in a deal, I mean that's a big add. And there's not many people that are capable of doing that as any type of competitor. I mean, the Sodexos of the world and those organizations could add 100 overnight. But they're not as competitive in the market because the margins are so low. They like to stay in the hospital segment. So that's the thing is their ability to grow and grow quickly is a huge advantage.
Okay, very clear.
And sorry, on retention, you think around 90 going forward or higher?
Again, it's going to depend on the year. So year over year, but I would think after a couple of years, you're going to lose some business. It's good. The question is, can they replace it? It's one thing to lose it. Is can they replace it, and is it good, profitable business? So that's
we'll come to
the big challenge.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But retention down a little bit. Yep.
Do you see any specific larger customers that you would think are maybe a little bit more risky or at risk of loss in this industry?
The way the industry is working right now, there's always risk, and it's a lot of risk because the big organizations, the Genesises of the world, the Consulates, these companies with hundreds of buildings have a lot of instability because they're leveraged so high. So there's a lot of leverage on these organizations to try to say, how do we make a profit? And then over time, if the census dips or they have some issues with their basic overall day-to-day operations, it puts a lot of strain on them. They either got to sell some buildings or they're going to go bankrupt. So the basic overall thought process is at least 10 to 20% of all facilities are going to shut down over the next probably 5 years. So you're going to see a lot of downsizing of the industry. And again, that puts a lot of risk on everybody, especially healthcare, because, they got to say, we got to deal with new owners and new owners with very tight margins. And how do we make this work? Plus they're all going to want, the payment terms to be flexible.
Okay. That's very clear. Winning new business, do you think it's become easier or more difficult to win significant new business?
It's probably a mixed bag. You go business, company by company, expectations are higher than they've ever been. But winning new business that's good, profitable business, that's the challenge, because a lot of times they might walk in with a low margin saying we can grow this over time, but they haven't, on the food side, you can't do that. Housekeeping, you can, again, the revenue's a little bit lower and it's easier to grow the margin a little bit, through a couple different avenues. With food, there's not a lot of avenues that you can look at. You can't mess around with resident food or you have a lot of exposure. And that's one of the issues that the organization's had for a lot of years, is they've had a lot of problem with their food margin and how to make this work, because it's not something that you can build over time. It's something you lose over time if you don't really pay attention to, the consumer price index on how the food costs go up. You got average wage issues that are happening. You can't look at the average wage that drop. Unions are present, so you got a lot of issues there. You got to really pay attention to get the margins up on food, that's a big challenge.
Let's come back to the question on new business in a bit, but maybe just on margins in the business. So housekeeping contracts. Can you help us understand how the margins move in, say, year one of a contract, year 2, year 3, if they move up or down?
A lot of it depends. Usually the housekeeping moves up. Usually the housekeeping over time will move up. That's pretty consistent. The dining is a moving target. That one's a lot different. But the housekeeping will move up.
Okay. and housekeeping you typically reduce